Okay. Let's check on some stuff. Do I hear me? Oh, of course. Okay. Yeah, it's loud. Okay. Yeah, it's loud. Okay, alright. Let's close this. It's loud. Okay, alright. Oh, okay, I can hear myself talk. It's confusing me. Baloo! Brauchst du mehr Händchen, wirklich? Sit. Here. My dog wants chicken. As always. How's it going, Chris? Oh, my camera being over here is brutal. Are we still playing through jam submissions? We are playing through the final jam submission. Our very own Chris Saffron, also known, aka FKA Mr. C. So he is our last submission, and to this narrative game jam. However, this is actually a question I have. Oh my god, my OBS being over here is so confusing with my camera here. Hang on. Because my chat is also over here, so I'm always looking and it looks just wrong. All right, that's better. So, what was I gonna say? Oh, so the next game jam technically starts in 6 days. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know how many people are ready to go. You know what I mean? Or rearing up and ready to like hit the streets. Yeah, this title screen is super cool. Yeah, I'm already really interested in this, and the music is great. I'm assuming that this is original, Mr. Chris. I'm back from the contest in 6 days. Oh, cool. So you're thinking that that's good timing. Yeah, I want to gauge interest in that, whether I need to push it back or if it should stay as it is. Because right now it is exactly 6 days from today, basically, almost like to the moment. Is it going to be a week again? I can't remember. Let me go to the itch. That is a great question. So 6 days and 4 hours. And then let's go to edit jam. Just don't steal my account. Let's see, so start date 10/7, end date 10/15. That's a week, right? So yeah. Oh, Baloo. He wants chicken so bad, but I'm supposed to meter it out. So yeah, that is the running thesis is start in 6 days. And henshin. Yeah, henshin. Yeah. And then it'll run for a week. So yeah, I think 1 week will be really cool, because what I have an interesting idea. Oh, thank you. He appreciates the virtual pad. I have an interesting idea for this jam that I want to. Baloo, was willst du, huh? I have an interesting idea for the jam that I think will make it quite fun. Here, you want henshin? Go get it. I want to make it like really tight, because one of the things I'm noticing is we get a lot of games. I mean, this was true in Neophyte as well, but we would get a lot of games that were like, and I don't think this is bad, but I'm interested in seeing other things. So what we would always get with Neophyte and in a lot of these jams is a lot of like, this is the visual novel I've been working on since I was like 14, and it's 10,000 words, or even more, depending on which branch you take. And really, you should play it twice to get the full experience. And for me, it's like it's kind of hard for me to even comment on the narrative, right? It's hard for me to even talk about the narrative of a game like that, because I would have to sit down and do like multiple streams for each game so that I could get through the narrative and say like, here's the things that need to change. Here's what you need to do different. And that's just a ton, it's a ton of work. And so I had an idea, not moi. I just stayed awake way too much on stuff. So I mean, I'm not even talking about monochrome in this example. It's just like, there's a lot of people, and in Neophyte it was the same thing. We would get a lot of people who were like, this is the visual novel I've been working on forever. Here's basically just a book that I wrote, but I made it so that you can click next. You know what I mean? Which all of that is interesting and all of that is cool, but I'm interested in seeing, this is a technique that Pinckney did in the creative writing workshops, right? So all of us, we got into the creative writing workshop, all of us who fancy ourselves as auteurs, as authors, right? We got into the creative writing workshop, and I already had a short story written. Like I was like, here we go. I wrote a short story over the summer because I knew that we were going to have workshops, because that's how MFAs work. And I was going to come in with my, super polished, short story that it was going to blow everyone away. Right. And then day one, Pinckney comes in and says, you guys aren't going to be writing short stories in this class because you're not good enough to write stories yet. Oops. You guys aren't good enough to write stories yet. Balu. Ganuk. So what I'm going to have you guys do instead is you're going to write scenes. And we were like, scenes? What are scenes? Scene? You mean when the camera changes? When the camera changes to a different location? Is that what you mean? Because I can write a scene. And he said, no. Scenes are the fundamental building blocks of a story. They are, good boy. They are microcosmic units of narrative, right? So they when narratives are fractal, which is that's kind of my thing, is that I believe the narratives are fractal in a way. When narratives are fractal, if you can tell a good scene and you can do it and you can do it consistently, then you can tell a good story, right? And so this is what I'm thinking for this next jam. It's got to be a scene. It's got to be a single scene. That's it. One scene. That's all you got to make. Nothing much to it. You can go in any direction you want with that, in terms of mechanics, in terms of visuals, in terms of narrative. I don't care. But you're going to follow the narrative structure, right? The contestants, the participants of the jam are going to follow the narrative structure of a scene, right? And when I say scene, I mean it. Like it has to have the entering emotion. It has to have the conflict. It has to have the exiting emotion. It has to have the emotional turn. It has to have the exiting emotion, right? And if it doesn't have those things, then I can't, I can't give it my stamp of approval. It's gotta adhere. It has to. So this is going to be a restriction. This isn't going to be a theme. This is going to be a restriction, right? And I'm wondering exactly, like, extreme restrictions and jams are always welcome. I agree. I think that the restrictions breed really interesting innovations, right? This is what poets have been doing for like 1,000 cajillion years, right? Is they're like, what if we only wrote a thing, but it had to adhere to a specific lyrical, it had to have so many syllables per line, you know what I mean? And people look at that now and they're like, isn't that so interesting that poets would do that? But now we look at it and we're like, if I had to make a game that only had 3 lines of text, I couldn't tell my truth, man. Yeah, you could. You could tell your truth. You just have to do it in 3 lines. You'd have to do it in one scene, right? So that's what I'm thinking. I have no idea about a theme yet. I thought the theme could be fun for 10 minutes, and then you could run with that however you want. So like the theme is 10 minutes, which obviously I'm trying to imply like the game should be playable in 10 minutes, like beginning to end, right? Because that's about the length of a scene in terms of narrative, in terms of like print fiction. I mean, it's not necessarily like it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just like on average. So that might be fun, says Chris. Interesting. I'm very interested to see what the people like, because I imagine, just based on the conversations we've had in the Discord, I imagine that you're quite prolific, right? And I find that prolific writers could struggle with this type of idea, right? I'm not a particularly prolific writer. Like, I just have fits and bouts where I won't do anything. I won't write anything for months and months and months and months. And then all of a sudden, I'll write 25,000 words in a week, right? Yeah, 10 minutes is about the length of what you could polish in like a week if you start from scratch. Yeah, right. Like that's kind of the thing. Like I want to experiment with the idea of keeping things condensed, right? Like the more condensed, the more you have to get creative with the solutions to your issues, right? And the less you can put in. Like you've got to be clever with the content too, because you can't tell this grand story. You can't tell this grand narrative. And this is another problem that we had in the MFA workshop, and I'll explain that in a second right after I read Chris's comment. A bit different from what I'm used to, but I could pull it off and probably get some sleep too. Yeah, exactly. So what I'm thinking, and this is the thing that's really cool about this idea, to get back to the MFA thing. So Pinkney comes in, he says, everybody's got to write a scene every week. That's how it's got to be. And we said, how long? And he said, why are you asking me that question? First of all, it's a stupid question. A scene is not a length of words, a number of words. A scene is an effective use of the structure of scene writing, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to write a scene. Baloo, what do you want? He's under the table and he's just putting his foot on my knee. Okay, right. You can come here. And so the interesting result was like, he was like, I bet you guys can't do it. And we're like, well, we can. We're writers, man. I've published short stories. And then we went home, we tried to write scenes, and we all ended up writing basically short stories in 1,000 words, otherwise known as flash fiction, right? So all of us were writing flash fictions, and flash fictions are fine, but they're not scenes. Flash fictions are almost like prose poems. And so that was an interesting thing because he kept saying, this isn't a scene, this isn't a scene, this isn't a scene. And we're like, what are you talking about? It's like a whole story in 1,000 words. And he's like, it's not a scene though. It's not a scene. You need a scene. If you can't write a scene, you can't write a story, right? And so the more and more and more we practiced on this, because we did it for like a year, the more and more and more we wrote scenes, the more it became clear that, oh my hell, Baloo. The more it became clear that the scene is the fundamental building block of story. And once we finally got a scene right, once we actually wrote a good scene, that was when it became time to branch out and extend that narrative into more scenes. Because scenes beget scenes, which beget chapters, which beget books, which beget series, right? So yeah, that's the hot scoop. That's the hot scoop on Narrative Game Jam 2. Is I'm thinking theme 10 minutes, restriction 1 scene. And I'm going to have to really lay out what the hell that means. I'm going to put it everywhere. It's going to be in the Discord. I already have a write-up on scenes in the Discord, like how to write a scene. But I'm going to post a YouTube link, which I think explains what a scene is very well, like almost better than I can explain it, and because it has like all those fancy visuals. And then I'm probably going to do a write-up on the on the HGM page itself, explaining what are the requirements of a scene and what you need to do, right? And the other thing that I'm interested in is to see how many beginnings of stories we get, right? Because a lot of the time in the MFA, it's in that workshop was we were writing basically the first scene to a short story over and over and over again. And Pygmy was like, why are you guys doing that? Like, why? You don't need to write the first scene. Just write a scene. It can be any scene. It could be the high conflict scene. It could be the resolution scene. It could be the scene in which the hero is forced on their journey. It could be the resolution scene. It could be the wedding scene. It could be, it could be a random scene in a coffee shop. It doesn't need to be the beginnings of the story. But I imagine that most people will write the beginnings of the story because it's hard to sit down and write the middle of a story. You know what I mean? Without any context or any idea of who the characters are and, what they're doing. But I think if you get good at that, you get a lot better at narrative a lot faster. So, yeah, that's my thing. Okay, let's play Monochrome. Right after I give Baloo some chicken. All right. How you feeling, Chris? Are you excited? Let me check to see who's in chat. Hunger Doggo, indeed. And he just ate like an hour ago, but his mother went to orchestra practice, or as it's called in Germany, Musikverein, and he's very sad and scared. And so chicken is the only answer to this. All right, can you hear the game music before I go on? I feel like it might have something to do. I feel like it's relatively important. It's a little low. Okay. Yeah, you said last week that it's important, right? I suppose I could also turn it up for y'all. No, I can't. That's as loud as it can go in OBS. Really? Yeah, it's audible. Okay. It's just the sound in general adds to the ambiance. Now it's too loud, though. Okay. Then let's turn it down a little bit. Let's turn it down here, just so that it's not gainy. And then let's turn it down to 5, from 7 to 5. You good, Blue? Are you ready? I think he's ready. Woof. New game. Yeah, you. Oh, this is awesome. I was working late when this Dane walked in. Don't all the stories start this way? Well, in Noir they do. Hey, wait a minute. Let me back up a bit. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. How did you make all of this art? I'm already curious about that. My name is Rivers, Michael Carl Rivers. I'm a private investigator. I used to be with the FBI until I botched an investigation. Now I make my own rules and do things my own way. Yeah, I mean, so far this is falling right in line with classic noir. Right down to the Dan Jacksons. Right down to the Dan Jacksons. I use 3D models, customize them, use lighting and camera effects, etc. Dang, I love the aesthetic. Yeah, it's great so far. The screen is quite creepy. What happened? Well, it was a child trafficking case that went bad. A bunch of kids got killed in the crossfire. I sank into a depression afterwards and lost my job. Now the wife left me, which came as no big surprise. Then I wound up inheriting some money from my uncle, and I started my own private investigation service. It's usually the typical stuff: affairs, missing people, and all that other jazz the cops haven't solved or have given up on. And sometimes, that's the weird stuff. Crazy stories like UFO abductees, ghosts, and other world of crap. Always turns out to be something I can't debunk, though. One day, I was hard at work on a bottle of booze. When this dame came in, she was a knockout, a bombshell. I like how he's simultaneously like in the present and in the past, with like the laptop and crazy crap, which it doesn't ring to me as like noir, but maybe it is. like noir characters always speak with that like transatlantic accent, right? I mean, not always. That's obviously false. Like Brick. You seen the movie Brick? Whew, it's a great movie. Yeah, the laptop and the walkie-talkie. Yeah. So I'm kind of like in the past and present thing. It's fun. One day I was hard at work on a bottle of booze, knock out a bombshell with the kind of legs a man would kill for, and a smile that could make a dead man blush. Gotta say, I'm already really enjoying this more than I would say I enjoy most visual novels because of the visuals. Like, you definitely got that going. As soon as you stepped in, I knew, because I feel like I'm kind of reading like a comic book, but the art feels very unique. I knew that either she was going to change my life or she was going to be big trouble. Dolls like that usually are. I looked up from my computer at some spooky case I'd been looking into. Her face seemed to have a bit of anxiety, as if somebody had killed a best friend or something. The music is bopping. Yeah. I could tell by her footsteps that she was a lady on a mission. Are you Detective Rivers? Nebulous Saffron says. Nebulous Saffron. She fidgeted nervously with her hands as she walked over and stared at me. Her intense eyes burned directly into my soul as she spoke before me with an urgent tone. My name is Nebulous Saffron. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at the name. It was fun to say. I need help. I've tried the police, but they blew me up. Like I was crazy or something. Please, you're my last hope. I think it's too loud now compared to what it was. Okay. Never could resist a tight skirt never could resist a tight skirt or a pair of big eyes like hers. Perfect? Okay. Take a seat, doll. Or no, shit. Take a seat, doll. These models are cool. Closed the lid on my laptop to get a better view of her. She sat down, and man, what a view. Sounds like you've got a hell of a problem if the police... Oh, fuck. Sounds like you've got a hell of a problem if the police won't even look into it. Please, don't think I'm crazy. And don't laugh. I'm so tired of that. Promise me? I'll see what I can do. She stared blankly for a moment before the urgency in her voice returned. It's my son. He's vanished. Been missing for a while now. Not just that, but my ex-boyfriend, his father, is missing too. I've tried to get everyone that I can think of involved. Police, FBI, and even a few other private investigators. They either act like it's no big deal, or they won't take the case at all. I don't understand it. Well, I have a question for you. Is your ex-boyfriend a police officer? Weird. Why would the local PD give her a blow-up like that? I nodded and listened to her story inquisitively. As she continued, I made sure to take notes on the stuff I thought that I thought could help. There was one of those conventions in town. Kids Fan Con, you know, where the big stars from television and movies show up to meet the kids, sign autographs and so on. My ex took him, and that was the last I'd heard from him. I tried calling and going by their house, never got a reply. How long ago was this? Almost a year. Jeez, a year. That's a long time to have no new leads. Thought of taking another case involving a child, though. I let my skin crawl. Especially after the thing got me booted out of the bureau. Okay. So I got to the first thing I want to talk about. This is cool. I'm liking this. And I'm really liking, I forget the exact term for it, but there's a technique in narrative in which, especially in anti-hero or redemption narrative, where, because all noir narratives are redemption narratives in some capacity, right? Or they are fall to madness narratives. It's either a guy who's down on his luck, who overcomes his demons, or it's a guy who succumbs to his demons, right? The difference between tragedy and comedy there. So the thing that is going on in this narrative is that, so we have a guy, right, who he is down on his luck. He's unhappy. He's firmly entrenched in the status of an anti-hero or a redemption hero, right? a bad guy to become good. And the thing that I have already found to be extremely effective, and I wish more narratives, especially video game narratives, would do, is that the story is set up in a way that it actually is believable from a narrative perspective. And so what I mean by this is the protagonist is down on his luck because of a thing that went bad with children, right? Okay. So what is the cause for the story? The cause for the story is not that a woman came in and asked him for help, because he said it himself. People come in every day, affairs, marriages, missing boyfriends or whatever. Cheating boyfriends should be what I should have said. But the cause for this narrative is that it's a missing child. Now, why is it the cause for this narrative? Because the protagonist, we already know this in our minds. We already know this in our narratively trained minds. The protagonist will have to redeem himself via something involving children, right? Because he failed in the past with children. And so that is the cause for the story. That is why the story exists. The story exists because of its inherent, I guess, irony, for lack of a better word. I don't think irony is really the word, but irony implies the thing I'm trying to get across here, which is he entered this dark stage due to an FBI raid bad involving children. So, yeah, exactly, right? So, I mean, this line says it all right here. The thought of taking another case involving a child, though, it made my skin crawl. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, obviously he's not going to take he's not going to take the case. He's not going to be like, and then I told her no because of the child thing from earlier that I mentioned. I couldn't do it because I couldn't stand the thought of a child being murdered because of my actions. The story, obviously, it would be the worst story ever. And then I told her no. No, because that's the reason why the story exists. The reason why the story exists is because it involves a child. Right? Roll credits. And then I said no thank you, and I went back to my normal day-to-day business. But if you watch narrative, if you watch a lot of film, and if you're thinking about it in the way that I'm thinking about narrative, you will see this stuff all the time, right? You will see the regretful cop who is forced into a situation he doesn't want to be in, right? I was just about to retire, but then this young buck came in and he forced me on a mission, which forced me to reconcile with my past, right? That's how all narratives function. All right. So let's get on with this, especially after the thing that got me booted out of the bureau. Oh, shit. I got to turn the sound back on. Oh, goddamn. Sorry. Please, I'll do anything. Well, so he refused the call. It sounded like he refused the call. Well, I could deal with anything from her, I guess, depending on what her definition was. Okay, I'll take the job. We'll discuss payment later. She gave me Charlie's photo, then proceeded to give a few copies of my business card. A few copies. And I took down her number, along with some more notes on the case before her walking out. Hey, I can be a gentleman occasionally, you know? So ultimately what I was saying with that comment was good instinct, right? It's yet another example, because maybe you didn't really do it intentionally, like write specifically into what makes noir narrative effective, an anti-hero narrative effective. But it's another example of a thing that I bring up all the time, which is that we tend to intuit narrative better than we consciously write it, right? I did a search on her son, Charlie, but it turned up very little. He Googled Charlie? Sad, I thought. A kid vanishing without a trace gets you a 2-cent article on the back of a newspaper in these days. I know that he actually didn't literally just Google search Charlie. I was just kidding. Checking online, I looked for the info on Kids Fan Con. Various things popped up, so I decided to narrow it down, cross-referencing the words abduction and missing child. What I found shocked me. Okay, so here's another thing that I want to talk about real quick, and then we can move on. So this reminds me, just like him talking about the things that he did. I understand why it is the way it is, because it would be a nightmare to program all this. And this is a visual novel, right? So I don't expect this, but I just think It's interesting. So in the Shiva, a really cool game, a really cool adventure game by the guy who ended up doing like Unavowed and some of those other ones. In the Shiva, you actually do some of the research, like in the scenes where he does the research, you do the research, right? And it's really cool. Like you go on a computer, but you don't really, like, the character doesn't really know the computer, so you don't really know the computer, and you have to kind of like browse around files, and you're like, I don't, what's the password to the email? You know, like all this funny things. But it's super effective. It's really effective at like engaging the audience in this idea of like being this guy who doesn't really know what technology is, but he's trying to find out why one of his congregation went missing, right? It's very interesting. It's super duper cool. So, Shiv is great. I actually want to replay that game again. It's a cool game. All right, back to this volume mixer. Oh, is there no sound, or did I mute it? I'm confused. Let's continue on. I don't think I muted it. Checking online, I looked for info. Yeah, okay, we're good. We're good. Oh, this is awesome. This is cool though. Oh, dude, this is sweet. Is this your music, Chris? Creative Commons stuff like that. It's cool. It's a good song. It's been so long since we last spoken. I couldn't shake the sense of devotion. I couldn't shake it. This is so sick. This is basically what he found online. Okay, all right, yeah. This is cool. This is awesome. This is the exact kind of shit I'm looking for. It would have been super cool if I could have clicked to get it started. Is the opening credits and part of it? Yeah, right. All hell CC stuff, help me elect and change our Yeah, tons of conspiracy stuff. Sorry, I'm kind of just enjoying it. Not much to say. Just from a narrative perspective, it's just really fun. This is this kind of like mixed media shit that Pygmy is just in love with. Oh, that's very graphic. Yeah, you should consider sending this to, or I don't know. Neophyte is looking to kind of become an ultra indie game publisher, and I feel like this fits almost. Like Pygmy would take one look at this, and I think he'd want to publish it. The conspiracy theories are abundant. It looked to me as if people had lost their marbles in both desperation and helplessness regarding the topic of missing children. However, my anxiety increased when I read something which raised an eyebrow on the local community forum. It appeared that a number of children and their guardians had vanished locally around the convention. Why wasn't this being investigated and reported in the newspapers or on television? Something didn't quite sit quite right with me. It felt off, for lack of a better term. I decided to look up because okay, so Pinckney's also like he's basically a scholar of H.P. Lovecraft, and loves noir, and is like literally trying to make this type of thing, this type of game story narrative thing, but in VR. And I don't think it's noir necessarily, but I think he's trying to make a like 3D models, capturing them in environments, like that he's trying to go a similar route with the art style. I decided to look up a promoter of the Kids Fan Con. A web search usually produced a result, a well-known sleazeball named Brian Torgani. Not only was Torgani known to law enforcement as a smooth-talking local con man, he was an alleged slumlord and a former drug dealer. He had money, sure, but I'd guess that it was mostly from shady business dealings and back rooms. I proceeded to call one of my regional law enforcement contacts in order to get some information on Torgani's whereabouts. Sounds like someone I'd have 20 hours. Yeah, Pinckney is one of the most fascinating human beings I've ever talked to. Hello? Jones, hey, it's Detective Rivers. Hey, Rivers, how you been, Hal? Long time no talk. How's the private eye business of yours going? Not bad. I'm actually calling about a case right now, as a matter of fact. Oh, yeah, what you got, pal? Looking to find out the whereabouts of Brian Torgani. Brian Torgani, missing person investigation. I think he might be involved. Torgani. Man, you don't want to get involved in that. Guy's dangerous, and the cops can't even seem to touch him. Pretty sure he's got somebody wired in the courthouse downtown. You just let me worry about that. This is my time, friend. Let me know where he is. Man, you know what? If you want to deal with that creep, fine. Just don't say I didn't warn you when it all hits the fan. Meaning shit. Sorry. And watch your back. Something in Officer Jones's tone sent a chill down my spine, as if there was a feeling of impending doom lurking behind the whole case. There was a monster behind the curtains, and I was just about to take a peek at it. He spends a lot of time at the T-bar. Just be careful if you go there. It's a shady joint. Thanks, Jones. You're welcome. And if anybody asks, you didn't hear none of this from me. Click. I decided to ride down to the T-bar, hoping like hell that clown was there. I drove through the streets. Oh, this is awesome. Where did this art come from? Is this another one at like a an asset pack of like a city, and then but they're not models you made, right? They're models that you're like collating or curating into like scenes, and then taking snapshots, taking pictures of them, like fucking with the lighting and stuff, and then taking pictures of them. I asked because I think I might want to steal an idea like this. Because it's super cool. Like I really like it. It's working very well for me. No, I buy 3D models and customize them. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, and DAS. Oh, okay. That's funny. That's what Pinckney works in. Yeah, that's super cool. That's very, very cool. It's something I think I may end up having to do, because I don't think I can be a talented enough developer to do some of the things that I would dream to do, but I think I could. It seems like I could do something like this. DAS is great, but addictive and expensive. I drove through the streets nervously, wondering what I might encounter at the bar. It was a speakeasy way back in the old days, and the influences still seemed to have a firm grip. Rumors abounded that the place was a rowdy, organized crime-controlled night spot. But then again, who was I to judge how people want to spend their free time? Maybe the rumors were just that. Or maybe the place was as bad as its reputation seemed to indicate. I'm not competent enough to model, so I've been staying away from 3D, but it's nice to know that this is an option. Yeah, I mean, like screwing with the lighting and altering it, and you can make some really unique things. Like with the game that I made, what the hell is that game called? The Disc Jockey. Like I basically just bought, and I mean, it looks like it doesn't look nearly as good as this, but I basically just bought like a cyberpunk city, like a low poly cyberpunk city, and it came with a bunch of cyberpunk models, and I just put all I just it was kind of like playing Dolly House, where I was like, okay, and then I'm gonna put this character here, and I'm gonna pose him like this, and I posed him like that, and then I put a little like trigger zone so that when somebody walked into it, they could talk to him. But that was basically it. It was just like I downloaded this asset pack. I changed the lighting. I put like a filter on it. I added like some of the lighting, and Unity's pretty good about lighting effects and stuff like that. So alles gut, Blue. I take the renders into Topaz Studio or Photoshop afterwards usually and play with them. Okay, I see. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't even know. It's fun. I don't even know if I would be able to go that far. I think I would literally I would just move the camera around inside a Unity scene and then just change like the various pictures, like the filters on it. And I would just hit Control Alt print screen and like just make a folder. That's probably all I would feel comfortable doing. But then again, oh, I already read that. I'll find out soon enough. I thought to myself as I neared the outskirts of town where the T-bar was added. T-bar. Oh, wow, that's awesome. So this is an example of messing with the models. That is an... I can't read that. Are not as they are. Something are not as they are. That was very effective. First of all, just the bar thing moving side to side, that was really good at conveying supernatural. And then obviously this is just like windmill slam dunking it, you know what I mean? Which I think is effective. This is it's cool. Like I'm having a hard time critiquing it, you know what I mean? It's got its mission, and it is pursuing the mission, which is all I want in a narrative. Not that again. As I got out of my car, I had one of my infamous neurological fainting episodes. Those things drove me nuts. None of the doctors could figure them out either. I regained none of the American doctors could figure out why I was having insane chest and abdomen pain either, and it was because of gallstones. I had to come to Germany, and they said, do you have pain in your chest? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, it's probably gallstones. I was like, yeah, thanks. Something helped me. Things are not as they seem. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, gotcha. I regained my focus looking around. This is great. What is it programmed in? What is the game programmed in? As someone who has a bunch of chronic illnesses, the medical system here isn't the best, sadly. No. That was my first experience with the medical system, and I was like, I can see what everybody's fucking talking about. I made my way to the door, preparing myself for anything that I could encounter once I got into the building. A tinge of dread gripped me, remembering the warning of my police officer friend. Right. Tyranno Builder. I've never even heard of that. What is Tyranno Builder? But yeah, it was insane. Like I went to them with pain, and I went to the emergency room and I was vomiting, and there was all this shit, and they were like, well, we're going to have to do an upper endoscopy. We're going to have to take your blood. We're going to have to do a screening for hepatitis. We're going to have you do like 4 more things that each cost about $10,000. Because we think you have liver failure. I'm like, well, I'm 29 and I don't really drink that much anymore. So it's very unlikely that it's liver failure. And they're like, well, you had a high bilirubin or something like, yeah, bilirubin. And I was like, yeah, because I was passing a gallstone, which means my gallbladder was trying to empty and the liver was producing tons and tons of bile. And they're like, no, it's liver failure. And I was like, let's do one more blood test and see if my bilirubin, before you shove a camera in my throat, let's do one more blood test and see if my bilirubin levels are normal. They did another blood test and my bilirubin levels are normal because I wasn't passing a gallstone. And they were like, yeah, but it could be, IBS. I'm like, you guys are fucking retarded. You guys are all so dumb. What are you talking about? And then I came to Germany and I was like, I have pain every other month, sometimes when I eat. And they're like, probably gallstones. Let's do an ultrasound. And I was like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah, right now for free. I'm like, what? And they went, boo, 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 boo. And they're like, there they are. I was like, I'm like, your surgery's on August 31st. I'm like, okay, I'll be there. Lovely U.S. It's a pretty simple, relatively visual novel creation GUI. Oh boy, I'm gonna look that up. Yeah, it's insane. The medical system is insane. That when they said that they needed to do all these extra tests to confirm all of the other things it could possibly be, I was like, okay, I think you guys are looking to make money. I don't think you're particularly interested in figuring out what's wrong with me. I think you want to figure out everything that's not wrong with me, and then you'll tell me what I told you the day I came in, which is that it's gallstones. I made my way to the door, preparing myself for anything that I could encounter once I got into the building. I already read that. The reverberation of music drifted outside. However, the street itself was barren of any activity, other than myself, of course. I brushed off the looming terror in my mind and made my way into the building. Suddenly, a crazed-looking fella stumbled towards me rather aggressively. It didn't take very long to figure out who he was. Brian Torcani. Hey, I know you. Oh, hey, I know you. Fuck, I gotta come up with a new voice. Hey, I know you. You're that loser that got fired from the FBI that became a private dick. What do you want? You ain't really welcome here. You're Torcani, right? Relax, man. I just came in here to ask you a few questions. I gotta go for class, have fun, and thanks for the stream so far. Absolutely. Catch the rest of it in the video later. What are you doing, boo? He quickly grabbed a tranquilizer gun off the nearby table. Whoa, relax. I'm just here to ask you about missing persons case. What? Do I look like a kind of child kidnapper? You better get the hell out of here or I'll shoot your ass. About this kid named Charlie Saffron. He went to that convention you put on, the Kids Fan Con, and vanished along with his pop. Look, Copper, I just organized these, man. I don't know a damn thing about some missing kid, nor any Eyes Wide Shut parties. Maybe his old man got sick of paying child support and ran off with him or something to an Eyes Wide Shut party. Wow, what a douchebag, I thought to myself. Is there anyone else involved with the event that might know more? The lug in charge of security at the event, filling in Paul Santos, hangs out up at that old bar, Jimmy's Station, a lot. Karaoke junkie. Jimmy's Station, wow. That's a place I haven't heard about in a while. It used to be the biggest karaoke spot in town. Back in the day, after a big place called the Tavern burned down in mysterious fire. Problem. I'm trying to reform here. I don't want no kidnapping in my kitchen. He nodded at me and walked off. Jeez, I had to go to yet another bar. I haven't had a bar hop since my 21st birthday, and that was for completely different reasons. Getting drunk off my ass. I headed out to the car and made my way to Jimmy's Station Bar and Grill. Figured I could get something to eat and listen to some tunes while I was there, regardless of Santos being present or not. Went through the streets of the sprawling metropolis, making my way down to the south end of the county. As I pulled up, the place looked almost exactly like I remembered it from last time I was here. Though from what I had heard, it was under new management as of a couple of years ago. Whoa, this is a cool picture. This one looks a little bit different though. This looks like a photo that was altered. Am I right? Am I right in that? This is an actual. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I think you did a good job of like keeping cohesion with the art style, but like, yeah, it's definitely a photo. Like there's no models, even when it's this low. You just there's the detail isn't there, right? Like, I think it's a good choice. I think it's a good choice you made. Because yeah, this like adds a lot of personality. It looked to be a busy night. There were various groups talking, eating, and singing karaoke. Like I think had you arranged a bunch of models, and like they would look like models. You know what I mean? This bar has appeared in several of the VNs in the series. Oh, really? Cool. Looking around, Santos was nowhere to be seen, and I wondered if Brian had lied to me just to get me out of the T-bar. I decided to wait it out. I took a seat at one of the few empty tables, and a doll came rushing over to take my order. Yep, continuity. Man, she was a knockout. Lymphenia. Hey there. I can't do lady voices. Is it? Okay. Thank you. Let's get it down to a 1. A solid 1. Oh, shit. Yeah, I'll take the number 4 in a side order for you. Of you. What? She giggled like a schoolgirl. I think that's it. You know what they say. Be careful what you wish for. Beer to drink or soda? Draft beer, please. She winked at me provocatively while writing down my order. You new around here? Actually, me and my partner own this place. We bought it a few years ago. I'm Lynthenia McIntosh. Veritas. Sorry, I didn't see the dash there. Macintosh Veritas. This character has appeared going all the way back to the second beginning of the series. Oh wow. But you can just call me Lynn. Well, I hope that I'm sure that the voice I am doing is the exact voice you hear in your head when you write her. Pleasure to meet you. Same with Detective Rivers. Pleased to meet you. Listen, do you know if a cat named Santos might be here tonight? Probably. He's usually in here after work for a few beers, and he sings a couple of songs. Man's fucking addicted to karaoke. Awesome. Thanks, sweetheart. Hear it all. Well, they say I'm about as limber as a doll, if that counts. Heh. Oh. By the way, you want a cookie or a candy bar? What? What? You get a free one with your order for hitting on me. She winked. A cookie, I guess? Awesome. That means I get to eat the candy bar. My favorite. She walked off to put in my order. What a strange cow. After about 10 minutes, Lynthenia proceeded to bring me my food along with some witty banter. It was a fantastic meal, and this place still lived up to its reputation for good, cheap grub. I sat around for a while, having a few drinks. Without warning, a man came up to my table. He sat a few personal items down before speaking. Let's see. So, I heard that you were looking for me. Who told you that? The owner, Lynn. I'm Santos. Paul Santos. What do you need? I'm investigating some missing persons report from the kids' fan con last year. Apparently a bunch of people went to it, specifically kids, and whoever the guardian was that took them vanished into thin air. I heard about that too. I tried looking into it, but it's like I was blocked at every turn. I'm trying to read him as though he says the ends of his sentences incredibly fast. Weird. Did you guys get anything on camera? Not a damn thing, other than the typical coming and going. Well, actually, there was one thing that seemed really odd. What's that? There were these little leaflets being passed around randomly. Oh, fuck. I fucked that one up. Kind of weird. Seems like everyone had them and no one knew where they came from. Do you have a copy of one of them? Not on me, but I can email you a scanned copy once I get home. I proceeded to give Santos my email address. Seemed like the kind of guy I'd want on my side. Anyhow, you can never have too many contacts when you're in law enforcement profession. Thanks, Santos. I appreciate it. He nodded, shook my hand, and walked off. What was that? It was then that I realized that Santos had forgotten his stuff on my table. The newspaper article Santos had left was older than my granny. Why would Santos carry around about a missing fellow from up northeastern part of the country who vanished over 100 years ago? The photo of the guy looked familiar, though, oddly enough. Back in the office. Okay. So effectively, we've had Randolph Carter missing. Yeah. Effectively, we've had, 3 scenes? I think. Kind of 4. Because we have the first scene, right? We have the first scene. I'm not going to count the research scene because it's kind of like montage. Maybe it could be a scene in itself. But it doesn't have enough character emotional movement for me to qualify it as a scene. And then we have the scene where he talks to the old cop buddy, which I think could have had a little bit more conflict. I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky here, I think. Because I think that, the narrative is moving fine. I'm enjoying it and having fun. But just to nitpick on the stuff, because I think that the work actually warrants nitpicking, is that I feel like the scene with the old cop buddy could have been had a little bit more conflict. And actually, I think basically all of the scenes could have had a little bit more conflict. Except for the first one. The first one was fine. The first one's just introduction. That's all normal. Although, I suppose, so there's one thing that that's in tons and tons and tons and tons. It's in almost every narrative, right? Which is the refusal of the call. And I didn't feel like the call was sufficiently refused. And I think that a lot of this probably came from lack of time, effectively, or essentially. The conflict amount depends on the route you choose also. Right, yeah, I chose the route in the second scene, which felt very much the less confrontational one, where it was like, I'm here to talk about FanCon, and it was instead, I'm here to talk about a missing child. I don't know, for some reason it felt to me like it was the less confrontational. Had you said kids FanCon, it was a bar fight. Cool. Yeah, okay, so that's good then. But I don't necessarily even mean conflict in terms of like physical altercation. I mean emotional conflict, right? Where because how you want to think about every scene, and I'm going to be talking about this to the point where everybody is nauseated. But what you want from every scene is the protagonist of the scene has a goal, right? And they have an entering emotion, and their entering emotion is that which it was the emotion that they had from at the end of the previous scene. So if the previous scene was he was happy and then it ends with him being sad, then the next scene begins with him being sad and then he becomes happy, right? Now, there has to be a winner and a loser to every scene in some capacity. An emotional roller coaster in each scene, basically. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Effective fiction is an emotional roller coaster, right? It's an emotional roller coaster for the characters, right? I concur, right? So if he comes into the scene, if he goes into the bar, we need to know what his and I'm kind of just using this narrative as an example because I think that every narrative can be reminded of this, including my own. When he comes into the bar, we need to know what his entering emotional scene is, which we know because he has that weird, he has that weird sideways, oh my God, I'm passing out thing, right? And so he's disoriented, he's confused, he's worried, he's, there's a lot of things going on. Maybe feeling a little sick. He goes in with his goal in mind, and he runs into the conflict of the scene. The thing that is impeding his goal, which is information. His goal is information, and there's a guy in his way who needs to give him this information, right? So he is the conflict, right? So this guy should represent confusion, right? The character is feeling confusion, therefore the antagonist of the scene should be a representation of confusion, right? And I think you got some of it across where he was like, look, man, I don't know anything about anything. I just set it up. But you can imbue this dude with confusion and disorientation. Because then he is a reflection of the protagonist. Because everything in a narrative is ultimately a reflection of the protagonist in some way, right? The confusion is buff, though. Yeah, he's fucking shredded. That is some ripped confusion. And so then, because then what you're setting up is that when the character exits the scene, he goes from confusion to clarity, right? He has more clarity about the situation. This guy has nothing to do with the missing child. He just sets it up. He needs to go talk to another guy, right? So he goes from confusion to clarity, right? Now he's going into the next scene, clarity. So where does he need to end? Somewhere opposite of clarity. The story needs to get weirder. The story needs to get more confusing. The next scene needs to break down what he previously thought, right? Where he said that, so like the second guy in the second bar would be like, oh, he told you to come here? That's weird. He's got the roles mixed up. I am the bodyguard, or I organized the event. He was the bodyguard. And now we're like, what? And the character's like, what? Because now we're going from confusion to clarity, clarity to confusion, right? Or we're going from happy to sad, sad to happy, right? That confusion probably takes performance enhancing weightlifting medication. Absolutely. But do you see what I mean, though? Do you see kind of like where I'm coming at with this and why scenes are so important? Because scenes string together into a much broader picture. That this is how narratives become fractal. What I've been talking about for I don't even know how long, is that because now, after 4 of these, you zoom out and you say the subject of this chapter is confusion and clarity, right? And when you get to the end of your chapter, you can say, okay, he's gone from clarity to confusion on a grand scheme, in the chapter scheme. There was multiple scenes, there were multiple fractal portions of this chapter in which he was going from clarity to confusion. But the entire chapter is also him going from clarity to ultimately confusion. And now my next chapter is going to be about something else, right? Now I have the freedom to go to move on to something else, right? I can talk about another subject if I want to, or I can continue with the clarity confusion thing. But if you were to do the next chapter, it would be, if it ends with clarity or if it ends with confusion, then it needs to start with confusion and end in clarity, right? Or some adjacent thing, a clarity adjacent. It doesn't need to be exactly clarity, but it needs to be some type of opposite to confusion or something, or opposite to sad, or opposite to happy, or opposite to, elated, joyful, terrified, right? So these are the words that you want to be thinking about when you're writing. You want to be thinking emotionally. You want to be thinking like, when you sit down to write something, you want to be thinking, okay, how's my character feeling as I start to write? They're sad? Okay, how do I make them happy? with conflict, right? If I can make them happy with conflict, then I've got something going, right? Because now they're sad, but the conflict comes in and forces them to work on being happy, and then they end happy. Okay, great. So we'll talk about this more as the next game jam goes. But this was just something that I really wanted to talk about. My wife just texted me saying that she forgot that she was wearing my watch. She wanted to borrow my watch, and she stole it. I can't believe her. This is some of the best constructive criticism I've ever heard. I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you think so. I've had many years of training, but I have to give a lot of credit to Pinkney. Pinkney was the one who completely, like, he cracked open my skull and said knowledge, and then I was like, and then I got so much better at it. Conflict makes me happy too. Makes me incredibly happy in narratives, especially MFA narratives, because most MFA narratives are sans conflict. They are stories sans story. They have no conflict, and therefore, the next day I made my way to the office as usual. Still, nothing from Santos yet. My dog is doing something naughty. 1 second. He wasn't doing anything naughty. He was quietly and politely laying on his bed. This weekly stream is a gold vein. I'm glad you think so. Yeah, see, this is kind of the thing that I want to do. So here's a scoop. Here's a hot scoop. What I really want, more than anything, is, so I there was nothing in my life that I wanted more than getting an MFA. When I was like halfway through undergraduate, well, a little bit after, like almost at the end of my undergraduate, I was like, there are a pretty famous writer, named, literary famous, Caitlin Horrocks. She read one of my stories and she said it was publishable. And she said that I should publish it. And I said, okay. And so I sent it out, and sure enough, it was published. And it was the first time any writer person had ever told me, like, hey, look, you're pretty good. You should do something about this. And so that completely changed my life, where I was like, okay, I'm going to be a writer. Like, this lady said I was good, and I sent a story out, and I got it published, and my life changed forever. So the only thing I ever wanted past that, it was the only thing I thought about, basically, was getting an MFA. It took 4 years of applying, but I finally got into an MFA. And while I loved being in the MFA because I got to meet Pinkney, and Pinkney and I are still friends. I mean, I was texting him not too long ago. Ultimately, I hated the MFA experience, I think. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like how stodgy and annoying everybody was. I didn't like how arrogant everybody was. And I hated how expensive it was. So the MFA was free, the tuition was free, but I had to move across the country. I had to pay student fees every semester, which were ungodly expensive. I basically burned through my life savings doing this MFA, like burned, like bonfire. And I came out of it thinking, you know, if I had just emailed Pinkney, like if I had just said, hey, could you give me like the MFA rundown in like an email? I feel like I probably could have just skipped the MFA. Ultimately, I'm glad I didn't, because that's also where I met my wife and everything's great, right? Now I live in Germany, and woohoo. And woohoo, like genuinely, like woohoo, I live in Germany. That's like pretty cool. But the MFA is bad. I think the MFA is a fundamentally broken thing. And I don't think it makes any sense. I got that vibe from you that you hated it. Yeah. I hated a lot of it. I loved talking to Pinkney about fiction, but ultimately the MFA felt a lot to me like a bunch of people who have what the hell is going on? A bunch of people have no idea what they're talking about, telling other people who don't know what they're talking about what they should do. You know what I mean? It's like, think about it like this. Let's say, I don't know, you want to be a blacksmith, right? And so you go to blacksmithing school, and the professor was like, okay, I'm gonna like be quiet, and you all teach each other how to be blacksmiths. And everybody's like, but I don't really know how to be a blacksmith. And the teacher's like, no one knows how to be a blacksmith. You this group of people, you guys, you know, you got into the school. So like, just teach each other. And it is nonsensical. It is a truly nonsensical way to learn. Which in Pinkney's workshop, it was great because Pinkney was a teacher, right? He came in and he said, you guys all suck at it. I'm going to tell you how to be better. And we're like, I was like, thank God. Whereas most of the other people in the MFA were like, oh no, this guy doesn't like my writing. Wah, wah, I am so sad. I am upset because my writing is special. So my mother told me, right? And Pinkney wasn't like that. He was like, I'm going to teach you how to be a good writer. And these are the ways this is how you become a good writer. Because this is what good writers do. Good writers write in scene. They tell heroes' journeys. And they follow the structure that was passed down from the fucking Greeks. And everybody else was like, no, I don't want to have a story with story. What if I wanted to have a story with no story? And Pinkney, you know, was like, yeah, that's stupid. And I agreed with him. I said, thank you, Pinkney. Finally, somebody in my life who said that dumb, boring stories are just dumb, boring stories, right? But that's not how everybody in the MFA was. That's not how every teacher in the MFA was. The rest of the teachers were like the blacksmith teacher who said, figure it out. You guys are all super smart. You've read a couple of books. You should teach each other how to be professional fiction writers. It just doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. So ultimately what this is leading into is that I have an idea. I want to make a new MFA. I want to make an MFA that's only in Discord, Twitch, and Itch, where we make games with narratives, and I basically teach the class via Twitch, right? And so, the class will be taught over many, many jams, right? A semester's worth of jams, where the fundamental fiction things will be adhered to, right? So just like how Pinkney did it, because week 1, scene. Week 2, scene with objective correlative. Had to have an objective correlative. If you didn't, you failed. Week 3, it was scene with an objective correlative, and I can't remember what the. Oh, I think it was. It had to be. You had to tell a true story and a fictional story, but you had to tell them in such a way that both could be true, right? So they had to be autobiographical. One of them had to be autobiographical, and the other one had to be fictional. But they had to be revealing. They had to be frightening, right? You had to be scared of what you were going to tell the people, right? So I wrote a story about how I had a crush on my dad's ex-girlfriend. And let me tell you, it was one of the most excruciating things, because we also, every week, we had to read our fiction in front of the entire class, right? So I was reading this short fiction piece about how I had a crush on my dad's girlfriend, and then the second story was some other embarrassing thing, but that was the fake one, right? And it was excruciating. It was brutal, but it really taught me a lot about why true stories are good and why fiction stories are hard. Right? Particularly in details, because the details in the true story were better than the details that I could come up with, because I wasn't being creative enough, right? And so by telling my true story, I can't remember what the fake one was. I think it was like, it was one where I projectile vomited into a fire. And almost everybody guessed the projectile vomit because nobody could believe the crush about it. Because I was like, I did whatever Pinckney said. Pinckney was like, you have to reveal a deep, dark secret about yourself through the fiction. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And so I did the real one, and everybody guessed the projectile vomit into the fire because nobody would believe that I would come in and tell that story. Because it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal. So the girlfriend envy story, that was the true one. Yeah, that was the true one. The false one was puking in the fire. So that taught me a shitload, right? So, I mean, I think that could be a really fun jam theme or jam restriction, that the game has to be based on a true story from your own personal life. And then I think, what did we do after that? We did Anagnoresis. Anagnoresis is like the end of Oedipus Rex. I've talked about this already, where Oedipus Rex finds out, oh shit, it's my mom. That's Anagnoresis. It's obviously a much more complicated and amazing than my pithy, but yeah, it was like a fucking home run, lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson. I learned like basically everything I learned in the MFA, I learned in that first semester, and then there was 2.5 more years of sitting around waiting. Anagnoresis follows an ignoramus. Absolutely. You're 100% correct about that. So yeah, I want to make a new MFA, and I'm trying to figure out how I can give some type of certification, some type of certificate, because my MFA is useless. It doesn't, like, I tell people in Germany that I have an MFA in creative writing. They're like, what? What do you do? You make letters? I'm like, no, I write stories. They're like, what do you mean? No, you don't. Like, no, I swear. But yeah, so like nobody gives a shit. But I talked to Pinckney about this a little bit, of setting up like handout bratwurst. Yeah, absolutely. Where Pinckney said that back when I was with Neophyte, that we could set it up so that we could give out micro credentials, which are kind of like certificates, like these congratulatory, like, hey, look, this is a piece of paper you can show somebody, right? Like, you completed the course. And yeah, that would just be awesome. And you could come in, you get critique from me, over the course of like a year of jams or something. I think it'd be sick. But anyway, sorry, I got distracted and started talking about shit that's not this game. I think what we'll probably end up doing is playing this game next week too. Cause we haven't even I'm fine going another probably 15 minutes, and then I've got to do some other things. But I'm thinking we'll probably go on with this game next week. As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna save right now, just to be safe. Because I feel like we're not close to the supernatural yet. Am I correct in this, Mr. Saffron? Hair saffron. Sort of. Okay. How long is the game? Because I'm enjoying it enough that I think I want to finish it. Like, I feel like the story is complete enough. You know what I mean? That I feel like I'm fine finishing the entire narrative. I actually could maybe even just do a bonus stream on Monday, because y'all are awake on Monday, like in midnight anyway, right? Roughly an hour played straight through. Okay, cool. So I've played for like, 25 minutes, like hard, because I've also like slow. I've been playing slow because I'm reading. Yep. Okay. So yeah, maybe we can go for like another 15, and then we can do a bonus stream on Monday. Because Monday is a good day for me to bonus stream. I have to do it. I have to do those in the morning, because that's when my wife heads out to work. So I can get those done in the morning, which is like basically midnight in America. So does that sound like a good plan? Seems like a good plan to me. Bonus stream Monday. Works for me? Okay, cool. So we'll keep going, though. Yes, please. Okay, cool. I decided to look up Randolph Carter. Randolph Carter, born 1874, is an antiquarian and a man of scientific notation. He attended Miskatonic University, and rumor has it that at the age of 9, he started showing rather strange gifts, including that of precognition. All right, Lovecraft, where are you? Carter served in the French Foreign Legion during the First World War and was badly wounded fighting near Belloy and Santerre in God, I wanted to say it in German, 1916, during the Battle of the Somme, in which the Legion participated. He was ruled out as a suspect in the murder of friend and colleague Harley Warren due to the lack of a body. Warren was placed on a missing list and is presumed dead, especially now. He was an uncelebrated author whose writings were seldom noticed until after he disappeared, whereas he gained popularity as a cult figure amongst fans of horror and science fiction. When he vanished, there was a large police search. No trace of him was ever found. At his will reading, a strange robed man showed up claiming that he was still alive and would return someday. His cousin, the lawyer reading the will, died at the reading. Wow. His real estate remains in limbo. I could swear that I've read some of this before. I started to go ahead. Oh, okay. I went ahead and looked up the Kids FanCon website info, but as I went to the site, I got a 404 error saying that the URL was down, and I don't know what none of that shit means. Suddenly, my email inbox let me know that I had a message. I opened up the email to find a scan of the flyer, which at first looked innocent enough, but after reading everything and taking it in, made my spine tingle. I made a printout of it, taking a closer look. Hey kids, after visiting KidsCon, be sure to bring your guardian and come spend some time with the stars. Come visit them out on the bus outside. It's going to be a great time. You'll see things in a new light. Creepy symbol? Sign our special guest book while you're here and get a cool super secret name. Seems legit. Go to the tour bus after the convention. Secret names? Yeah, this is sus. All of this could be innocent enough at face value, however, with so many unexplained vanishings surrounding this convention. This sounded like some sort of cult. Could the damned conspiracy theorists be right? As I stared closely at the symbol on the paper, I felt faint. There was something hauntingly familiar about it, and yet I knew that I had never seen it. Déjà vu, jamais vu. God, these are great. These are so effective. I hope there's more of them. I gripped the desk tightly, having had another one of my neurological spells. After recovering from my daze, I scoured the web for the previously mentioned symbol, searching frantically for its meaning. Sadly, the only thing I could find was a reference to it appearing in an ancient grimoire, an occult book of spells and various arcane mythology. Crazy glitch graphics. This knowledge in hand, I figured the best thing to do would be to go to an actual college library. The closest one was Louisville University. So I'm actually using like a kind of okay accent. I've been to Louisville. I have a friend who lives in Louisville right now. Louisville. Kentucky. Kentucky accents are, they are an interesting thing, aren't they? The closest one was Louisville University. So I hopped in my car and made my way there. I used to live there. I see. Yeah, I would imagine that a noir story would not be set in Louisville unless the author had probably either lived in Louisville or been to Louisville or had family from Louisville and I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing it right, where you kind of just like, you say "la" and then a bunch of vowels and then "vul." The city streets were surprisingly desolate, and I pondered the strange circumstances of this case as I continued driving. Hopefully I'd find anything really, to keep me on the trail of Miss Saffron's missing kiddo. Yep, Louisville, yeah. I learned it from, he was actually a guy in the MFA. He was one of my good friends in the MFA. Okay, quick shout out to this guy, because he does a really fun thing. He does a podcast called Brainbuster Boys. His name is Beaumont Rand, which is like, I cannot think of a more Kentuckian name. But yeah, Beaumont Grand, he does this podcast called Brainbuster Boys about like, I think it's like simultaneously about real WWE and also fake wrestling. And like, it's like this weird news show, but there's a narrative, like a narrative arc that's been going on for however many episodes they've been doing. It's really fun. It's really cool. The library was quiet and nearly empty, except for the occasional student. Sad, I thought to myself, witnessing firsthand the downfall of the written text. There was something to be said for the feel of a soft page turning in one's hands. Snapping back to reality, I walked around, looking through the occult section of the library. Sadly, there wasn't much there. Rather, nothing useful in my quest to identify a cryptic symbol on the leaflet. You look like a guy... Oh, shit, I'm running out of voices. You look like a guy who's trying hard to find something. Considering the section you're looking in, I might be able to help you with that. I looked up from the bookshelf to see a nicely dressed man with silver hair and striking blue eyes standing there. Hi there. Hi there. I keep going hi. Hi there. I'm Chris. Oh, I thought his name was Chris Pleasure. I'm Chris. Pleasure to meet you. I help out with the library, and I'm also a Chris Pleasure. Hi, my name is Chris. Chris Pleasure. I help out with the library, and I'm also a professor of archaeology, cosmology, and astrophysics. That's a Texan accent, yeah. And I teach both here and up at the Miskatonic University, depending on the time of year. Something I can help you find? You're the exact man I need to find. Do you know the guy that I was looking at in the newspaper? I can't remember the name of. The music is really good, by the way. A professor, perfect. Maybe this guy can help me out. Hey, Mr. Pleasure, my name is Detective Rivers. I'm looking for information on this symbol, I replied, pulling out the flyer and pointing to the strange sigil. His eyes widened. Where did you get this? It's part of a case I'm working. I take it from your reaction that you've seen it before. Yes, it's from a very old grimoire that was originally found in the Middle East and lost to time, though a sparse number of badly translated copies are still floating around. The title of the book roughly translates to The Book of the Dead or the Necronomicon. Okay, I found you. I see you, HP. Oh, that is great. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. What in the hell was that? Before I knew it, I had fallen to my knees and the professor was helping me back up. That didn't just seem like a neurological fainting episode. It was some type of vision. Creepy. I looked at the professor nervously. After what I had just witnessed, I didn't know if I was going mad or if perhaps my medication needed adjustment, but something instinctually frightened me about this man. I love the episodes in this novel. Yeah, they're so far my favorite part. I actually think that you could you could use these to the point of abuse. Like you could abuse these. They're so effective. Like almost any time basically anything, I think it could be used. No, they're not overdone. That's kind of what I think. That's kind of what I'm meaning. Is like they I don't know if they could be. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously they could be, but like if it's just every other second, you know, it's just like this fucking fever dream, acid trip. But I don't know if they could. Like, I think that they could be abused in a way. I like off the rails surrealism, yeah. So they could be used more because they're always fun. Like I haven't seen one yet that I'm like, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? I'm like, yes. Are you okay, Detective Rivers? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. Thanks for helping me out, pal. Help me up, pal. You were saying? My tone may have had some unintentional urgency. I didn't want to be around this guy any longer than I had to be. The symbol best that academia has been able to decipher is the sigil of a forgotten entity, which, according to the crazed writings of the author of the Necronomicon, was worshipped by some rather mad sects back in the day. Just pretend that this is bourbon, and we're squarely in Kentucky. Whoa. Yeah, and it gets more interesting. These sects regularly practice some of the worst rituals known to mankind: human sacrifice, cannibalism, dark magic, and other immoral things. Like taking up 2 parking spots in the fucking grocery store parking lot. They claimed that the universe was based not around good and evil, but was instead alien to the human ideas of right and wrong. Human sacrifice? Yep, and even the entity's name was feared to be spoken out loud. What was it called, if you don't mind me asking? I don't know if I should tell you or not. According to the gent who penned the Necronomicon, Abdullah al-Hazrad, even knowing the name of the god can drive one to insanity. I'm fine with that. Lay it on me, Pally. Azathoth. Yeah, the words have power. I've learned this from Pinckney and from one of his students, Josh Woods, who is also quite a prolific and scholarly H.P. Lovecraft as a thought. Yep, all of them are great. Dearest, we need to leave. Dearest, we need to leave now if we're going to attend the ceremony. An alluringly feminine voice called out towards the direction of the professor, no doubt his significant other, based on the amorous inflections and keywords in her rather seductive vocal tone. It's quite a verbose sentence. Ah, my better half, Cassidy, has arrived. Yes, and we're going to be late for our evening ritual, if you know not hasten yourself, love. Of course, beautiful. The woman gave off a magnetic pull that was beyond describable, and while she was alluring, the lady's vibe was somehow even more panic-inducing than the aura of the professor. Yeah, she has a strange filter. These seem like the kind of couple that would kiss awkwardly in front of you while you go. Yeah, God, I'm gonna go clean the dishes. She listens to Bauhaus. If you'll excuse us, Detective Rivers, we need to leave. We have plans. I was afraid to know what those plans were. Oh, I was afraid to know what those plans were. And how did you know my name? All right. Thanks for your help, Professor. You two have a good night. No problem. And if you need anything else, I'm in the phone book. My full titular is Professor Christopher Saffron. I get it. Good Nacht. After they left, it hit me. Saffron. That was my clan and her child's name. Could the professor be related to her? My namesake. This was getting really weird. Indeed it was. Indeed it is. This is great. This is excellent, right? Because we go from confusion to clarity. So, in a way, we can almost think of the entire... Everything prior to this was confusion to clarity, right? So, we're learning about the character, we're learning about the case, we don't know a lot about it. He goes on a hunt, and in his confusion, and he's looking for things, and he gets some clarity, right? And then he gets to the end of that, and so that's kind of the end of the first scene, as it were, right? This is the second scene, because now we've gone from clarity to confusion. I do a ton of world building and connecting of things. These characters and some events mentioned relate to events in the previous series. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that's all. But even despite all of that stuff, I mean, it's the meat and potatoes of every narrative is still going to be this structure, right? The structure is as such that I feel as though I have just read the second scene, and all the previous material I was reading was the first scene, and that's fine. You can have as much interstitial information as you want in a given scene. If you need to do world building, you need to do world building, right? But a scene is a structural element of a story, right? And so the structure is the emotional structure, the entering and exiting, right? And so I feel as though I have read 2 scenes so far, which is, I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not meaning that as a critique or a criticism even. I'm just kind of pointing it out as like you are doing it. You are intuiting the narrative as it is, right? You are intuiting the narrative and its structure properly, right? Which is good. And yeah, I would say that, I mean, this is accomplished. I would say this is quite good. It's interesting. I'm interested in the story, which I can't say for many stories. I'm enjoying it. I mean, I don't even like half the fucking $60 game stories. Actually, I don't even like 90% of the $60. I had 97. Because the structure's bad. So, so yeah, I would say that, you know, this is quite an accomplished piece of fiction. At this point, I needed to update Nebulos on my findings thus far, so I made contact and asked her to meet me for pizza at the best franchise that I know of. Beyond telling her what I'd found, I just wanted to go relax and have a nice dinner with a good-looking lady at a family-friendly, wholesome establishment without any mention of murder, kidnappings, or fucking cults. Thank you. You're welcome. I drove a few miles and parked as the young waitress at Pizza Time Pizza greeted me politely and with enthusiasm. Let's see. How long is this scene? Or how long is this camera, I should say? Because if it's a short one, I'll do this one real quick and then we'll call it. But if it's a long one, then I think I'll stop here. And then we can pick up at the pizza. Actually, you know what? Let's just stop here. I think this is a good place. Eats a pizza. I'm assuming that it just saves right on this sentence, right? So like I launch the game and I'm right here again. I'm going to mute this. Yep. Okay, cool. That's good. So yeah, we will continue this. I'll say ahead of time, it's possible that something could happen on Monday and I might have to move the bonus stream. But I think no matter what, we'll return to this and we'll play this again because I think that I think we've stumbled on a great way to go through an entire game and talk about narrative structure, right? And we can talk about a lot of themes and a lot of elements to narrative because I think that this is doing quite a good job with the information it's trying to present, and I think it's cool. Like it's weird and original and fun, you know. I like the art style. I like the protagonist seems fun. I kind of wish we knew a little bit more about him, because right now he's kind of like I want like one. You know, I think this is what I want. So I think what would really help, and I'm not saying you need to go back and do this, but just like as in an alternative universe, one of the things that you could maybe consider in perhaps a future narrative is like after that first scene where he goes from confusion to clarity, you can end the scene or have a little mini scene at his house so that we can just learn just a few things about him. You know what I mean? Like if this is somebody's introduction to the game or to the world, to the narrative, you know, like maybe this detective is in others and I don't know, you know what I mean? Like that could totally be the case. But to have him go home so that we could just learn a few things about him. Like, you know, he walks into his apartment and, for some reason he has like 7 Bibles stacked on top of each other. And you're like, 7 Bibles? 7 Bibles? Who has 7 Bibles? You know what I mean? Like, just definitely only pizza and not a cult. Pizza Time is not a cult. So yeah, just like 7 Bibles stacked on top of each other, and like, you know what I mean? And he's looking for a key or something, and he's like, oh shit, where's my key? And it's, you know, it turns out it's in the 7th Bible in the back carved in pages. You know, like the pages are cut out and he's like, oh, there's my key. I put it in the Bible. And then he opens something, you know what I mean? And he pulls out a glass, like a whiskey glass. He's like, I haven't seen you in years. And then he pours himself a drink and goes to bed or something. Like just something, something quick, you know, just something to throw out some weird intrigue. Like, what the fuck? Why does he have this stuff? And, you know, but he's also like, he's still a noir guy, you know, like he's a drinker and but he's regretting it, you know, like it's all that same shit. It's just putting a spin on it. You know what I mean? Putting some weird occult spin on it. But not quite so occult. You know, it's not that he's obsessed with the Necronomicon and he like has a poster of H.P. Lovecraft like firing M16s. It's just like, you know, just a couple of weird things. Just a couple of, as I've said before, uninventable details, right? Details that are weird enough that they have to be true, right? They're too weird, you know. They're too weird. Much like, for example, me having a crush on my dad's ex-girlfriend. That uninventable detail, that's what the third week was about in the MFA that I was talking about earlier. The third week was the uninventable detail, which is why we had to write a true story and a fake story, because he was trying to show us that true stories have uninventable details, whereas fake stories, if they're not written well, don't have them, right? So jam them in. Uninventable details, just push them in. Throw them in, show them to somebody, say, what did you think of the weird, what did you think of the dead parakeet that was in his refrigerator? And they go, oh, I thought it was strange, but I don't know. And then he went to bed. And you're like, perfect, uninventable. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I would say in conclusion. Dream details. Yeah, exactly. Dream details are uninventable details, right? Like dreams are packed with them. Like oh God, my marshmallow shoes were melting, but then I ran up the stairs and my mom was there. You know, like it's just dream details are like perfect. Narratives are dreams. That's what they are. They are stories, right? And they're they're dreams. And yeah, I know I hate it when my mom's there too. And what dreams do so effectively is they suspend your disbelief, right? And you know that moment where you get caught by the monster? That's the moment where you can no longer suspend your disbelief until you wake up, right? Because you can't believe you've been caught by the monster. So the suspense has been broken, right? Now, what always happens in monster narratives? The monster almost always gets them, but never quite. It never quite gets them, does it? So, in your story / dreams, your goal is to suspend disbelief, and you do that by making things exciting, not technically proficient or correct, not bulletproof or airtight. You make them exciting and full of uninventable details, right? And then you just have to maintain the suspension of disbelief. And that is the three-liner. That is the Dylan Davis three-liner. All right, I'm gonna head out. I gotta go do some other things before I go to bed, and my wife's coming home in like 5 minutes. So, I will update the Discord. I'll try to be more active. I've been busy just thinking about other things and doing other things. But yeah, so I'll inform the Discord as to when the bonus stream will be, whether it's Monday or Tuesday, or it'll happen. If it ends up not happening in bonus, then it'll happen next Thursday, is ultimately what I'm trying to say. All right. Have a good day. Yeah. Have a good day, and I will talk to everyone später, as the Germans say. Bis später. Bis später. Okay, Baloo. Do you want some more chicken? Bye.